Today's story is called the Tyrannosaurus Drip. In a swamp beside a river where the land was thick with veg lived a herd of duck-billed dinosaurs who roamed the water's edge. Can you see? What interesting dinosaurs. And they hooted up with rivers, and they hooted up with reeds, and they hooted up with bellyfuls of juicy water reeds. Now across the rushy river, on a hill the other side, lived a mean Tyrannosaurus with his grim and grisly bride. And they shouted, up with hunting, and they shouted, up with war, and they shouted, up with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur. So here's the duck-billed dinosaur here. But the two Tyrannosauruses, so grisly, mean and grim, couldn't catch the duck-billed dinosaurs because they couldn't swim. There's a big river in between them. And they muttered, down with water, and they muttered, down with wet, and they muttered, what a shame that bridges aren't invented yet. So they're looking to get across because they like to eat the duck-billed dinosaurs. Now a little compsognathus, but we'll call her Comp for short, found a duckbill egg and stole it from the nest beside the swamp. And she swam with it and ran with it and murmured, clever me, and won't the baby Comps be thrilled with duckbill egg for tea? She dropped the egg in terror and went running for her life from the mean Tyrannosauruses and his grim and grisly wife. She dropped the egg, look, it's gone rolling. And the duckbill egg went rolling, and at last it came to rest in all of unlikely places, the Tyrannosaurus nest. Now the mother T had great big jaws and great enormous legs, but her brain was rather little, and she couldn't count her eggs. And she sang, hatch out my terrors with your scaly little tails and your spiky little toothies and your scary little nails. And what's happened? The duckbill egg is in the nest and Mummy hasn't noticed. I wonder if she'll eat it. Out hatched babies 1 and 2 as perfect as could be. Can you see? But Mother T was horrified by baby number 3. And she grumbled, he looks weedy, and she grumbled, what long arms. And look, his mouth is like a beak. He just needs feeding up, said Dad, and gave the babe some meat. The first 2 gulped it down and guzzled. The third refused to eat. And he said, I'm really sorry. And he said, I simply can't. He said, this meat looks horrible. I'd rather eat a plant. Because these are carnivores and he's a herbivore. He eats plants, not meat. A plant? Yelled Mum in horror. And Dad said, get a grip. His sisters found a name for him, Tyrannosaurus Drip. And they shouted, up with hunting. And they shouted, up with war. And they shouted, up with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur. Poor Tyrannosaurus Drip tried hard to sing along. But the others yelled, you silly Drip, you've got the words all wrong. For he hooted down with hunting, and he hooted down with war, and he hooted down with bellyfuls of duck-billed dinosaur. So they know he's different, but they don't know why. They don't realise he's a different dinosaur. She thinks it's one of hers. Drip's sisters soon grew big enough to hunt with Dad and Mum, but they turned on Drip and told him, you're not fierce enough to come. And he cried, they've gone without me. And he cried, lack-a-day. And he cried, this doesn't feel like home. I'm going to run away. So he ran off to the river where he saw a lovely sight, a herd of duck-billed dinosaurs all hooting with delight. And they hooted up with rivers, and they hooted up with reeds, and they hooted up with bellyfuls of juicy water reeds. And as he stood there on the bank, a sudden urge took hold of him, and he jumped into the water and discovered he could swim. And the duckbills came to greet him by the rushy river's edge, and they hooted, "Nice to see you," and they hooted, "Have some veg." They're very kind to him, aren't they? Because they like the same things. And Drip, who was delighted that they hadn't run away, ate bellyfuls of water reeds and played with them all day. And he gazed into the river and asked them, "Who, oh who, is that creature in the water?" And they laughed and said, "It's you." It's his reflection. He didn't realise before what he looked like, and he didn't realise that he looked different than his sisters. That night the lightning crackled and a storm blew down a tree, and it fell across the river, and the teas cried out, "Yippee!" What do you think they're going to use it for? Do you think they're going to use it like a bridge to get to the duckbills? I hope not. And they shouted, "Up with hunting!" And they shouted, "Up with war!" And they shouted, "Up with bellyfuls of duckbill dinosaur!" Drip's sister stepped into a bridge and then began to frown, for there in front of them stood Drip, who yelled, "Look out! Look down!" And they looked into the water, and they each let out a yelp, and he cried, "Water monsters!" And the other one cried, "Help!" Is it water monsters, or is it the reflections? They've never seen the reflection before, so they don't understand what a shadow is and what a reflection is looking back. Their mother scolded, "Nonsense," and she joined them on the tree. And then she looked into the water and exclaimed, "Oh, gracious me!" All three of them stood trembling, and Dad said, "Get a grip. You're all of you as drippy as Tyrannosaurus Drip." He strode until the bridge and scoffed, "I bet there's nothing there." Then he looked into the water and he jumped into the air. He got a fright. And how the duckbills hooted when they landed with a crash, and the tree bridge broke. And 4 Tyrannosauruses went splash. And spluttering and clinging to the branches of the tree, they went whooshing down a waterfall and all the way to sea. And the duckbills hooted happily. They hooted, "Hip, hip, hip! Hooray for the heroic one and only Duckbill Drip." There he is, looking very, very proud of himself. And that was our story today. I hope you enjoyed it.